in the gallery, in the Royal Academy, I fell on my backside because my brain was working so hard at trying to work out how he was doing this. But I came away from that exhibition thinking, that is what I want to do. Where I would start is around about the age of 11, 12. My grandfather Johnston, he was an electrical engineer, so he had a full-time job, but he was also very interested in art, and he did landscapes and portraits out of pastels on paper, and we had his work around the house. And I suppose as a child, as a teenager, I spent a lot of time looking at his work and talking to him about art, because I was brought up in a village very, very similar to Melrose. All we had was art, a couple of art books, tiny pictures of paintings. So I'd never seen a real painting, even though I was thinking of becoming a painter. So he interested me in pastels to start off with, and he built me drawing boards, and I used to go up into the hills and sketch and draw. My favourite place was a wooded area at the back of the village, and I used to sit up there in the woods with my dog and do these drawings that they weren't conventional drawings about particular trees or the shape of the land. It was to do with rhythms, and it was to do with the shapes in between trees, the movement, the way things interlaced and overlapped. And I had no idea what I was doing. And I used to just come back with sketchbooks full of this stuff. And I got to my exams at school and had to start making decisions about what I was going to do. And I decided to go to art college in Preston. And what got me onto the course were these drawings. I basically went in with two portfolios. One was stuff that I'd done at school, and they basically looked at that and said, no, that's all rubbish. But they looked at this portfolio of my own stuff, and some of it was quite big drawings. But the drawing board that my granddad made for me was probably about 4 foot square, hinged, and I used to carry this thing on my back up onto the hills and fold it out, big piece of paper, and do these charcoal drawings. And it was these drawings that got me into art college on the foundation course. For the rest of that year, really, I just spent as much time as possible in the life class. That's where you learn the first mark you make on paper is actually the fifth, because you've got the four sides of the paper, and you make a mark, it has to relate to the other sides, and that kind of gets you going. And I developed this way of drawing for myself, and there was probably a dozen of us in the life class, and we all had our slightly different ways of drawing. Some people used compressed graphite and did very hard drawings, but I liked the softness, and I used to break up the charcoal and rub it in with my hands, and then rub it out again and draw into it, and it was a process of creation and destruction. And sometimes the drawing instructor would come over with a piece of paper and he would just tape it onto the drawing, over the top of the thing, and said, right, just work on top of that. You develop this feeling of not being too precious with things. Things didn't work, rip it off the wall, put another one up. And money was no option, materials were no option. You just put another piece of paper up and another piece of charcoal, and away you went. that's the process. You learn just by diving in head first, getting on with it, learning what not to do, what works, what doesn't work. And we also started working on, I did these series of self-portraits where I was pulling faces in the mirror, you know, like that, and I would literally spend all day pulling this stupid expression and trying to draw it. Again, and you're just whacking into this thing. So when it came to joining the degree course, I wanted to get in at Sheffield because it had a very strong culture of drawing. I took this portfolio of my life class work and self-portraits. That got me in. I spent probably the first year of a 3-year degree course carrying on doing life class, and then gut instinct just got to that point where I need to start painting. The great thing about being at art college at that time, which must have been about 1980, was the materials were dirt cheap. So you could go downstairs to the technicians and say, I'd like a canvas 6 feet by 4, and they'd make it up for you. And then you go along to the paint shop and buy buckets, litre buckets of acrylic paints, 50 pence each pot, something like that. It was ridiculous. And I used to just have all this paint, and I just let myself loose and just threw paint. I mean, I had one student over there, another one here, and I'd be over here with my paint in there, and I was literally throwing it with a spade across the room and hitting the canvas, and the whole of the floor was covered in paint. There was paint on the ceiling, and the painting lecturers would come round and they'd be going, what on earth are you doing? I didn't have a clue. And then I would say, but if you look at that bit of paint on the floor there, that's what I want to do.